When I picked up my 5-year-old daughter from her grandmother's house, I thought the worst part of my day was already over. It had only been one night, not even 24 hours apart. I walked up the old wooden porch like I always did, expecting to see her running toward me with that wild, excited smile she always wore when I'd been gone too long. But instead, she shuffled out slowly, clutching her teddy bear tight to her chest, her eyes downcast. I bent to my knees, opening my arms, waiting for that familiar leap. She came in for the hug, but her grip felt different, desperate clinging, as though she didn't want to let go. I buckled her into the car, asked if she had fun, tried to smile like nothing was wrong. She didn't answer. She just stared out the window, her reflection pale in the glass. Then she leaned toward me and whispered words that froze every part of me. Mommy. Grandma said I should never tell you what I saw. My heart slammed against my ribs. My hands shook on the steering wheel. Sweetheart, I whispered back. What did you see? She looked up with her big brown eyes too wide for a 5-year-old, and the words that left her mouth made my entire body go cold. I didn't wait. I pulled out my phone and called the police. My name is Hannah. I'm 32 years old, a third-grade teacher in a quiet town outside Columbus, Ohio. But more importantly, I'm a mother to a bright, beautiful little girl named Laya. She is my entire world, the reason I keep breathing. 3 years ago, my husband Ethan was killed in a car accident. A truck ran a red light on a rainy night, and in a single moment, everything changed. I was home folding laundry when the phone rang. They said he died instantly. I remember my hands shaking so hard I couldn't even hold the phone steady. Laya was only 2. Too young to understand why her daddy never came home. For weeks afterward, she would toddle to the front window, asking when daddy would walk back through the door. All I could do was hold her in silence, pressing her little head to my chest while swallowing my own sobs. That was the moment I became not just a wife without a husband, but a mother determined to be both parents in one fragile body. Raising her alone hasn't been easy. Every fever feels like an emergency. Every late night at work feels like a betrayal, as though she'll think I disappeared too. But she gives me strength. She gives me a reason to face each morning. Together, we've built a small, imperfect rhythm bedtime stories, macaroni dinners, brushing our teeth to the same silly song. She insists I lie beside her every night until she drifts off. Sometimes I stay longer just listening to her breathe, because the silence of this house without Ethan is unbearable otherwise. And then there's Eleanor, my mother-in-law, Ethan's mother. She lives 40 minutes away in the same creaky farmhouse where he grew up. Since his death, she's offered help but never warmth. Our relationship has always been brittle, a fragile bridge cracked down the middle. She tolerated me for Ethan's sake but never hid her judgment. At his funeral, her eyes on me felt like a sentence. I wasn't enough for her son, and now he was gone. Still, she is Leia's grandmother, and I wanted my daughter to know her father's side of the family. So I allowed brief visits, an afternoon here, a holiday there, never overnight, until last month. My school had a mandatory weekend retreat, just one night. My sister, who usually helps, was out of town. My parents live in Florida. I had no one else. When I asked Eleanor, there was a pause on the phone so long I nearly hung up. Then her voice low and sharp. Of course. I've been wondering when you'd finally let me keep her for more than 2 hours. It should have been a red flag, but I ignored it. The morning I dropped Laya off, she was her usual bubbly self, bouncing in her red ladybug boots, stuffed bear marbles tucked under her arm. I packed her snacks, her favorite storybook, even taped emergency numbers to her bag. Eleanor took it all with a clipped nod. Hannah, she said I raised Ethan. I think I can manage one night with my granddaughter. I forced a smile, kissed Leia's forehead, and told myself she'd be fine. But when I returned the next morning, everything felt wrong. The house was too quiet. No cartoons, no music, no sound of little feet running to the door. Eleanor opened it, her hair pinned back, her eyes cold. She stepped aside without greeting me. She's in the living room. And there she was, my daughter curled on the couch, teddy bear clutched tight, knees to her chest. No smile, no laughter, just silence. I knelt in front of her, touched her hair, and saw her flinch. A small, sharp recoil as if she wasn't used to being touched gently. Panic bloomed inside me. I forced my voice calm. "Did you have fun, baby?" She nodded faintly. Eleanor's voice cut across the room. "We played some games. She stayed up a little late, probably just tired. But in the car, when I asked again if Grandma took good care of her, she whispered the words that shattered me. Mommy, Grandma said I should never tell you what I saw." I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My daughter's voice was so faint I almost thought I'd imagined it. But when I looked at her in the rearview mirror, her little eyes were wide, terrified, pleading with me not to push further. My chest constricted. "Sweetheart," I whispered, trying to keep my voice from breaking. "You can tell me anything. You won't be in trouble." "What did you see?" She clutched her teddy bear to her chin, her lip trembling. "In the basement," she said softly, almost inaudible over the hum of the tires. "Grandma took me down there. She said Daddy used to play there when he was little." My throat tightened. "And what happened in the basement, Laya?" Her voice shook. "There was a locked room. She had a key. She said it was Daddy's secret place. But when she opened it, Mommy, there was a man inside." I slammed the brakes without meaning to the car skidding slightly before I regained control. Horns blared from behind us. My heart hammered so violently I could barely breathe. "A man. What do you mean, a man?" Laya began to cry. "He was sitting on the floor with chains on his hands. He looked at me and said, 'Help.' But Grandma pulled me away. She said I should never tell. She said if I told, the police would take me away from you." Every part of me shook. My hands trembled so badly I could hardly dial, but I grabbed my phone, pressing 911 with a fury I'd never known before. The dispatcher's calm voice answered, and I gave the address, choking out words about a man in chains, a locked basement. "Send someone," I begged. "Please send someone right now." By the time I hung up, Laya was sobbing into her teddy bear. I pulled the car to the side of the road and climbed into the back seat, wrapping her in my arms. "Listen to me," I whispered fiercely. "You did nothing wrong. Nothing. You were brave to tell me, and no one will ever take you away from me. Do you understand?" Her tears soaked my shirt, but she nodded. "Promise." "I promise," I said, holding her so tightly I thought I might fuse her to me forever. The police moved faster than I expected. Within an hour, 2 cruisers and an unmarked van were parked outside Eleanor's farmhouse. I stood on the gravel driveway, holding Leia's hand, refusing to let her out of my sight. The winter air cut sharp against my skin, but I barely felt it. My whole body was fire and ice. Eleanor came to the porch, her face twisted with rage. "What have you done?" she hissed. "Bringing them here." I stepped forward, my voice shaking but louder than I thought possible. "What did you do? Who is in your basement?" Her eyes flickered fear, then calculation. "You don't understand." But the officers pushed past her flashlights, cutting through the dim hallway down the stairs I'd walked past 100 times but never questioned. My breath caught as a shout rang out from below. Then heavy footsteps, the sound of chains rattling, and 2 officers emerged carrying a frail man wrapped in a blanket. His face was gaunt, his hair matted, but his eyes met mine with a desperation that seared through me. Laya buried her face in my hips, sobbing. "That's him," she whispered. "That's the man." Eleanor lunged forward, screaming, "He doesn't belong to you. He was mine to protect." The officers restrained her, her screams echoing through the night, raw and animal. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't process. The man clutched at one officer's arm, his voice hoarse but clear. "How long has it been?" he rasped. "How long?" The officer didn't answer. They led him to the ambulance waiting by the road. My knees gave out and I sank into the gravel, clutching Leia against me as the world spun. All I could think was how close I'd come to never knowing. If my daughter hadn't whispered those words, if I'd ignored the chill in her silence, if I'd trusted Eleanor just one more night. I kissed the top of Laya's head, tasting her tears and my own. "You saved him," I whispered. "You saved us." But deep down, beneath the terror and the relief, another question pulsed louder than anything else. Who was that man, and why had my mother-in-law kept him hidden all these years? The hospital smelled of antiseptic and fear. I sat with Laya curled on my lap in the waiting room, her small body finally limp with sleep. I stroked her hair, my mind racing in jagged circles. The police had taken Eleanor into custody. The man they'd carried out of that basement was alive but barely, and I still didn't know who he was. Detective Carter, a tall woman with steel gray eyes, approached me. She pulled a chair close, her notebook balanced on her knee. "Mrs. Jameson," she began, her tone calm but firm. "We need to talk about the man found in your mother-in-law's home." I swallowed hard. "Who is he?" The detective hesitated, glancing toward the hallway where nurses moved briskly past. Then she lowered her voice. "His name is Matthew Grant, reported missing 16 years ago. He was 19 at the time." My chest tightened. 16 years. That was before I even met Ethan. 16 years, I repeated, my voice hollow. She nodded. "He disappeared from this county. Last seen leaving a bus stop downtown. His family never stopped searching. They plastered his face on posters, begged for answers. It went cold after a year." I shook my head, bile rising in my throat. "Are you telling me Eleanor had him that whole time?" The detective's gaze hardened. "That's what we're trying to determine. But Hannah, I need to ask you, did you ever notice anything unusual when visiting her home? Locked doors, restricted rooms? Anything she told you not to touch?" I thought of the farmhouse, the faded wallpaper, the heavy smell of mothballs, and yes, the basement door. Always locked, always dismissed with a sharp, "That's storage, don't go down there." I'd never questioned it. My stomach churned with guilt. I thought it was just old boxes, junk. Detective Carter leaned closer. "Your daughter said Eleanor told her it was her father's secret place. Did Ethan ever mention something like that?" At the sound of his name, a sharp pain lanced through me. "Ethan, my husband, gone 3 years now." Gentle eyes, crooked smile. I tried to summon a memory, any mention of the basement, but nothing came. He had hated that house. He rarely spoke of it. "No," I said, shaking my head. "He never talked about it." The detective scribbled something in her notebook. "Matthew is weak, malnourished, but he's speaking. He asked for you." My heart lurched. "Me? He doesn't even know me." She gave me a pointed look. "He said he remembers your husband." The words hit me like ice water. "Ethan," she nodded. "Yes," he said, Ethan knew. The ground beneath me seemed to tilt. I clutched Leia tighter, my pulse roaring in my ears. "That's not possible. Ethan would never." But even as I spoke, doubt slithered in. The shadows of his childhood, the silences, the nights he woke screaming, refusing to tell me why. "Can I see him?" I whispered. Minutes later, I stood at the doorway of a dim hospital room. Matthew lay in the bed, his body, frail skin stretched over bone. His eyes, though sunken, were startlingly alive. They found mine instantly, as though he'd been waiting. "You're Ethan's wife," he rasped. I nodded slowly. "Yes, I'm Hannah. Was his daughter's mother." A faint smile ghosted his lips. "She looks like him." Tears stung my eyes. "You knew him." His gaze clouded and he swallowed painfully. "He came down, sometimes, when we were young. He brought me food once, said he'd help me, but he was scared of her, scared of Eleanor." His voice broke on her name. Then he stopped coming. I thought he forgot me. The room spun. My husband had known. My husband, gentle, kind. Ethan had seen this man chained in the basement and left him there. "No," I whispered, backing against the wall. "No, that can't be true." Matthew's eyes filled with tears. He was just a boy. She controlled everything. But he knew. He knew I was there. I staggered into the hallway, gasping for air. Ethan's ghost pressed heavy against me. Not the man I'd loved, but the boy who had lived under his mother's cruelty. What had he carried all those years? What had he hidden from me? The detective caught me as I stumbled. "Hannah, what did he say?" I pressed my hands to my face, tears hot against my palms. "He said Ethan knew. He knew all along. The police station was cold, the kind of cold that sinks into your bones." I sat across from the thick glass of the interrogation room, watching Eleanor through the pane. Her hands were cuffed, her gray hair pinned neatly, as if she still cared about appearances. She looked more like a stern matriarch than a criminal who'd kept a boy in chains for 16 years. Detective Carter stood beside me. "We can let you speak with her if you want. Sometimes family gets answers faster than we do." I almost said no. I almost walked out, taken Laya home, locked our doors, and tried to build a world where none of this ever happened. But the words Matthew had said haunted me. Ethan knew. My husband's memory now lived between two possibilities, either victim of his mother's control or complicit in silence, and I had to know which. They led me into the room. The door shut with a heavy click, and for a moment it was just me and her. Her eyes lifted calm, calculating. Well, she said, the little widow has claws after all. My nails dug into my palms. What was he doing in your basement? Eleanor tilted her head, her lips curving into something almost like amusement. Matthew was dangerous. The world doesn't understand. I did what I had to. Dangerous. My voice cracked. He was a teenager. You chained him like an animal. Her eyes narrowed a flicker of steel. You don't know what I know. He was trouble from the start. Drugs theft sneaking around my house. I caught him once in Ethan's room. He would have ruined my boy. I protected my family. Her words twisted like knives, but I forced myself to stay steady. Protected. You destroyed Ethan. Did you ever think about what it did to him growing up over a secret like that? Something flickered in her expression, then just for a second, guilt maybe, or rage. Ethan was weak, she spat. Always was. He should have been strong enough to understand why I did it. My breath caught, so he did know. Her silence was answer enough. I felt my knees weaken the floor, tilting beneath me. My husband, the man I'd loved, the man I'd mourned, he had lived with this truth all along. Tears blurred my vision. He was a boy, and you turned him into your accomplice. You buried him under your secrets until they killed him. For the first time, Eleanor's composure cracked. She slammed her hands on the table, the cuffs rattling. He owed me! She screamed. Everything he was, I gave him. I kept him safe. I gave him a home. I carried the burden of that boy so Ethan could have a future. And you dare come in here and judge me? Her voice echoed through the room, but all I could hear was Ethan's laughter in my memory. The way he'd kissed Leia goodnight, the way he'd whispered promises into my hair. A good man, yes, but a man built on foundations of rot. I stood slowly, every inch of me trembling. No, Eleanor. You didn't protect him. You poisoned him. And you almost poisoned my daughter, too. Her eyes flared wide, fury and desperation tangled together, but I turned away before she could speak again. The guards opened the door and I stepped out into the hall, gasping like I'd been underwater. Detective Carter's voice was steady beside me. She's going to prison, Hannah. For a long time. But you need to prepare yourself. The trial will drag Ethan's name into this. People will ask why he never came forward. My chest constricted. Because he was her prisoner too, I whispered. Not in chains, but in silence. That night back home, I sat on the edge of Leia's bed, watching her sleep. Her little chest rose and fell, her teddy bear tucked under her chin. I brushed her hair back and thought of the cycle I had to break. I would not let my daughter grow up under shadows. I would not let silence eat her alive. Whatever shame, whatever secrets had lived in that farmhouse, they ended here with me. But deep down, one question lingered heavy as stone. If Ethan had survived, would he ever have told me the truth? Or would his silence have swallowed us whole too? The trial stretched on for months. Each day another wound reopened. Reporters swarmed the courthouse, their cameras flashing, their questions cruel. Did your husband know? Was he part of it? What kind of family lets this happen? I wanted to scream that Ethan had been a victim too, that his silence was born of fear, not malice. But the world doesn't care about nuance. It wants villains and heroes, not broken children who grew into broken men. Matthew testified from the stand, his voice hoarse but steady. He spoke of the day Eleanor lured him into her home, promising work. Of the basement door closing. Of years lost to chains, to darkness, to the sound of footsteps that were sometimes Ethan's. He was just a boy, too, Matthew said quietly. He cried more than I did the first time. I think he wanted to help me, but he was too scared of her. His words sliced me open, but they also stitched something back together. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was understanding. Ethan hadn't betrayed Matthew. He'd been swallowed by his mother's shadow long before I ever met him. The jury found Eleanor guilty on all counts: kidnapping, unlawful imprisonment, abuse. She showed no remorse as the verdict was read. Only cold, bitter disdain, as if we were all too blind to see the sacrifice she thought she'd made. When the judge sentenced her to life in prison, I felt no triumph, just an emptiness, as though all the oxygen had been sucked from the room. Afterward, I visited Matthew in the rehabilitation center where he was slowly regaining strength. His hair had been cut, his skin less gaunt, but his eyes still carried 16 years of darkness. He thanked me for calling the police for believing my daughter. But I shook my head. "Don't thank me," I said softly. "Thank her. She's the one who told me." When I brought Leia to see him weeks later, she clutched my hand tightly. At first she hid behind me, but Matthew knelt down, his voice gentle. "You saved me," he said. "You're braver than most grown-ups I've met." Slowly she stepped forward, placing her teddy bear into his hands. "You can borrow him," she whispered. And in that moment, something unspoken passed between them. Two survivors recognizing each other. At night when the house was quiet, I thought of Ethan. I thought of the boy who had crept down into that basement with food in his hands, torn between fear of his mother and pity for the stranger in chains. I wondered how many nights he lay awake beside me, haunted by what he never told. I used to believe silence was cowardice. Now I know it can also be captivity. He never escaped her grip, not fully, but our daughter will. I've started taking Laya to therapy, not because she is broken, but because she deserves a safe place to place her questions. Sometimes she asks me if Daddy knew if he was bad. I tell her the truth as I've come to understand it. Daddy was hurt too. Daddy was trapped. Daddy loved her with everything he had, even if he didn't know how to be free. The other day she asked me if secrets can hurt people. I told her yes. Secrets can build walls higher than prisons. But telling the truth, even when it's painful, is what breaks chains. If you're listening to this now, maybe you've lived under someone else's shadow. Maybe you've carried secrets that were never yours to keep. Please hear me, silence is not safety. Silence is surrender. And the moment you choose to speak, to shine a light, you've already broken free. My daughter reminded me of that. A 5-year-old girl who whispered the truth when everyone else stayed quiet. She saved a man's life. She saved mine too. So today, I don't just tell this story for me. I tell it for anyone still locked in a basement of silence, chained by fear, waiting for someone to open the door. Let this be your sign. It's time to speak. It's time to step into the light. If this story touched you, please like this video. Share it with someone who needs courage. Subscribe for more stories that reveal the hidden battles people fight, and leave me a comment. I'd love to hear what secret did you finally let go of, and how did it set you free?